do this. Okay, so we have the guest speaker, Ponnie Martin. And if you don't know, we had this kind of medium-sized fiber art show called XOXO Fiber in North Vancouver at the end of September. It was a lovely show. I really enjoyed it, and I thought I wanted to know more about this organizer, Connie. So I ask questions beforehand so you can get started. I may stop you to ask questions. And if you have any questions, please put in the chat and I ask her when the time is appropriate. Okay.
Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for having me. This is actually really cool. I haven't had a chance to pop onto your show before, so I'm really excited and kind of interesting way to get on is, to just be here as a guest speaker. I'm going to try to make some of the show on Sunday. Unfortunately, I'm working all day tomorrow. But for those of you that don't know me, my name is Ponnie. I am a knitter. I have been since I was 5 years old. I knit combined continental. So I hold the yarn in my left hand. I do this a lot, which people are always like, why are you doing that? And I enter the stitches incorrectly for the Western method, but it makes it a really, really fast. I'm also a machine knitter. I'm a mom of two. My day job is in fitness. I do basically a little bit of everything. There's not much I don't do or I don't want to do. So maybe I'm not really into quilting. I haven't gotten there yet, and I'm not a singer. Um, Other than that, I kind of enjoy pretty much everything. Um, Gosh, what can I tell you? How did XO start? Is that what you want me to talk about, Eurigo? Okay. So Knit City wasn't here, and a conversation broke out online about how we could best support our community, how we could still connect, and best support our local yarn stores. And Paula from Badanas put out a call saying, like, what will you do? What, like instead of sitting here and us just conversating, like, what will you do? And I took that to heart and I was like, what will I do? Um, I don't tend to do things easy or small, so it's a little bit dangerous when I ask myself that question. And I decided what I wanted to do most of all was put an event together for the community, like have it truly be a community thing where we could support local and connect and just really be community oriented. I'm often have been, I should say, one of the younger knitters in some of the groups I went to, like knit groups. So, and then obviously I knit completely different. So it's been a little bit of a struggle to kind of find my knitting community, or it was until I met the West Coast Knitters Guild. At the guild, we have everybody. So that was really cool. So I'm kind of giving you a bit more of a backstory here. So I'm now at the guild. I'm the vice president and education coordinator. If you aren't part of the guild, you should be. It's awesome, and you get a discount at yarn shops, so that's worth it. But we can talk about that another time. So, why did I tell you that? I had a point. Oh yes, feeling fit, like I fit in. So I was like, okay, I want to bring this like feeling like I truly believe to more people because I have spoken to a lot of people who also feel that way. They're maybe part of a knit group or crochet group. Maybe they don't really know how. Maybe they knit with acrylic, and it was like, and so like to just create a space where everybody was just welcome for who they are was what I really wanted to do. So how I set out to do that was I asked everybody if they could have an event that was local to us, what would it look like? What would be important to you? What would you like to see at an event? And it was resoundingly inclusive and accessible were the two things that people kept mentioning. So that's what we did. We formed and I say we because I wore like 8 different hats. I was like the accountant, the janitor, so like we as in me and myself and I ended up putting together this thing that was really based on inclusion and accessibility and equity. I obviously had volunteers and they're wonderful people and I couldn't have done any of it without them. But that was really the foundation, was to put this package out and say, this is what I like to do. And are you wanting to help? And yeah, so that was essentially how it started. I actually asked Eureka at one point about the name, because we were going to do love, comma XOXO, or love, comma fiber. And then that felt like it might have been a little too close to this show. So we changed it to XOXO. So that's where the name comes from. XOXO Fiber is like Fiber's writing us a love letter. If you are bored, if you have children and they wake up in the middle of the night and you're bored and you want to read the letter Fiber wrote, it's on the website. There's a letter to the community written by Fiber. That was really fun to write. Um, so yeah, so that's essentially what happened. Is we had this idea of how to support community, set the stone pillars at the bottom, and then build up from there. So things that make our show a little bit different. And this is probably was the biggest pushback I got, was our vendors were all limited to 1 6-foot table. And I'm kind of like looking at the vendor spaces in here going like, oh, what would I be able to do with that? But it really hit home on the equity to have just one table and have you present. And I'm still getting feedback from the show, and it's been such positive experience. The thing that everyone really took away from it was they got to meet the vendors, and the vendors weren't so overwhelmed with this huge display, that they got to present their best work, some of the things they really wanted to share with the community. um, and then they got to actually be present for the show, which was really really awesome. And I still am hearing people say like, I connected with so and so and I want to place a purchase on my next paycheck, and like things of that nature. And so that was really something I really, really wanted to see happen, and it's happening. So it's wonderful. Eureka can tell you though, because she was one of our vendors, how it might have looked from a vendor perspective. Accessibility was another really, really big thing. So again, it was asking a lot of questions. I'm actually blind in one eye, but I didn't realize that there's this thing called like visual accessibility. I had no idea. It makes sense when I look at something. It's like, oh, that, I can't look at that for too long. It gives me a headache, but I never actually took that further to go, wait a minute, there's websites that don't hurt my head. So I started looking into that, and we made sure that most of our Instagram and our website was visually accessible. So it shouldn't set people off when they read, and it should be easily read by most. Um, then came the actual space and making that accessible. So we had to find a space that wasn't overwhelmingly large, so someone could actually go through the most of the show. It had to be close to transit. This was one of the biggest challenges too. Parking sucked, but there were parking lots on site. So and we needed space for wheelchairs. So we couldn't cram a whole bunch of tables in. And this is another reason the tables were just one table and nothing next to and nothing in front of the table. So we had a lot of wheelchairs come through, and all of them had an easy time turning, or so they said to me when I asked. So that was, the little things that kind of made it stand out to me. We made sure that all our tables, including our demo tables, had a space open for a wheelchair to be able to come up to, so that we really made sure we hit um, everyone, right? Like because it's kind of easy for us to say like, oh, I run an accessible business, or I'm inclusive in the things I do, but then oftentimes we don't stop and really consider what that actually means, and are we actually inclusive to all or to some? Um, are we inclusive to a majority or everybody, right? So then the next one was, one of our volunteers said, hey, what about the deaf community? I was like, oh my gosh, I didn't even think about that. So then we hired um, sign language interpreters. And I actually started learning sign language as well, because I thought, like, what if there's no interpreter? What am I going to do? I'm going to need to know some things. So I learned how to spell XOXO, and um, it's a very big thing to kind of jump into. There's a lot to it that I didn't realize there was. And so it's been a learning experience. I'm still learning. I'm still learning a lot. Sorry, I'm just going to change my view so I can actually see everything here. Um, yeah, so what else can I tell you? The first show was over and then I slept because I didn't sleep at all before that show. And we have a second one booked. It's gonna be in June and I'm so excited. So excited to do it again. So I kind of forgot all the all the hard work that week of like sleep. Makes you forget some of the hard stuff. Um, yeah, I don't know what else you'd really like to hear from me. I'm happy to answer anything you want to ask, or if there's things you want to know about myself personally, I'm happy to talk. And I think I saw in the chat somebody was here, or was at XOXO. Amanda, cool, hi. Thanks for coming. Um,
Can I ask what day of June?
yes, you may ask.
So I don't book anything else.
Please hold. June the 7th, Saturday, June 7th.
Okay, everybody,
Oh, yes.
your calendar.
Yeah, save the date for June 7th. Amanda, you're right. There was a masks section. I totally forgot about that. So um, that was another big thing of inclusion and the accessibility was having everyone be able to come. And wearing masks was actually a really, really big thing for many people. So we actually made the first 2 hours of the day a mask required time slot. So everybody, like I kicked my own daughter out. She's 6. I kicked her out because she kept taking her mask off. I'm like, Lynn, you can't be here. Just end of story. And she was bending at my at the show. She has her little stitch markers there. So she went out and my mom stepped in and helped her for a bit. So yeah, that was a really big part too. And we had some wonderful sponsors. All our masks were donated to us, which was really amazing. Um,
Bonnie, I would love to know more about how you made the website more accessible. For myself, I get chronic migraines, and even my own website sometimes makes my eyes hurt. And so I'd love to know more about what steps you took in order to do that. Even people with dyslexia, I know find sometimes navigating websites really challenging. And yeah, I'd love to hear more about that.
Yeah, great question. So one of the things I did is I actually started just deep diving into visual accessibility and like, what is it? What are the key points? Where can I find more information? And that led me to a couple of websites where you can put, and I don't have them off the top of my head, but I could probably Google if you, I just followed you on Instagram. So you can send me a message and then I'll look it up for you. But you can put in, even if you Google it, there's some website where you can put in your website and it actually gives a review of its visual accessibility. So I started by doing that to my own website, like not the XO, because I hadn't even built an XO website yet. I just my own personal like business website. And I saw what worked and what didn't work. So that was my very first step was um, just figuring out like what do they score you on? Um, and so the biggest things you can do is color and font like right off the bat, color and font make a huge difference. So you'll notice like EXO is kind of bland, it's just black and white, but it's the biggest difference in color and easiest to read. And it's often you'll see like if it's a really bright background, then we have white writing on black, and it's just a little bit easier to read. Um, but that's how I started. I just threw in my own personal website so I could learn from like what I was doing well and what wasn't working so well. There are some courses you can take. My gosh, sorry. I don't know if everyone can hear my text, but they're coming in like crazy. I have no idea how to make these silent. I'm knitting for a TV show right now, and we had a little hiccup. Um, so I can tell you about that in a second. But yeah, so that's where I would start. There are courses you can take. There's a whole organization based on visual accessibility. From that, we also made sure that our signage was more visually accessible. My logo probably isn't the most visually accessible because it's not like easy and clear to read, but it's still black on white. So, and oftentimes when I've used the logo, we've also written in plain format what it is underneath it. So that has helped.
Thanks, that's great because I looked at my website and I was just like, It is white on black or black on white. I'm like, but like the brightness, I would love to. I see sometimes on websites they have that little thing in the corner. And I'd love to be able to integrate something like that where somebody who is visually impaired or hard of seeing can at least make the letters like larger. Not everybody is computer savvy, so like I'd love to be able to figure out a way to do that. So
Yeah.
I
So
appreciate that.
most
Yeah.
people, their devices will do that for them. So
Oh, okay.
like if that might be a wonderful step down the road, but there's definitely things that are more accessible for you to do right away that would probably have a bigger impact. And font would be one of the main things. I haven't seen your website, so I
Yeah.
don't know, but
I don't
I'm
even
happy
know,
to
to be honest.
I'm
It's a good
happy to
idea
look and
though
see.
to insert my, URL into something and have it kind of give me like a workup that I can work on because I want to be more accessible and I love hearing about the event that you're hosting and how you made it more accessible for people in wheelchairs. I used to be in a wheelchair and I would go into places. I told my husband many times, I'm like, I can't go into that store. And he's like, why? And I was like, because I don't fit in that store, even though my was really narrow. So I'd have to wait for days where I had enough energy that I could walk so that I could go into those places. And even in certain stores, their in-store motorized, chairs are very not accessible. They don't fit, they're really hard to use. And for myself, I'm in the process of helping coordinate a show here, like a fiber arts show. And so these are really helpful things that I can kind of go to the, a venue and say, hey, I'd like to make these changes. I think this would be really great. So I really appreciate you sharing that because it's actually very helpful and very inspiring for me because I'll be able to implement a lot of it in my own stuff.
That's wonderful. Yeah, and thanks for
Yeah.
sharing that. It's, sometimes we don't realize we kind of have an idea of like someone in a wheelchair looks like this, or someone who's
Yeah.
deaf looks like this, and it's not necessarily the case, and not every disability is a visual disability either, right? I
Yeah.
think another really big one, like really big one that I've gotten tons of feedback on was not being overwhelmed at the show. Like a lot of people were like, I was able to stay and see everything, And so I think that was also another key point of like trying not to do this huge, big thing and just kind of keep it a little bit smaller, a bit more personal. The things for accessibility for venues, ask them. Just be like, hey, what do you have? Right?
Yeah.
Are there buttons that open the doors? How do you get into the bathroom? Is there a baby change table in the bathroom?
Yes.
And if there is there another bathroom as well that people could use? And if there is, does it stay open? Because that happens a lot with those things. And then wheelchairs can't actually get in. They have to try to get this thing up and then get in, right? I got extremely lucky. I talked to a lot of people before the show, so a few people started following me on our Instagram that um, advocate for accessibility. So I have one lady particularly who's in a wheelchair herself, and this is her like full-time job. And she just jumped on and she's like, "Hey, you can ask me anything you want." And I'm like, "Really? How much?" She's like, "No, no, I love that you're doing this. Just ask away." And so I'd be like, "Hi, what do you think of this?" And so that really helped. Just reaching out and saying, "This is what I want to do. Can you help me?" It's one of my favorite phrases in life is "Can you help me?" And it's taken me 40 somewhat years to get to asking that question, but I'm really happy I learned it now and not later on, because I'm trying to teach that to my kids too. We try to do everything on our own. And can you help me is so powerful. Because like if I asked any of you right now, like, could you help me? Our instinct is to be like, yeah, what do you need? Right. So like everybody has a skill or has an idea or has something that could help, right? So just talking to people in your area, talking to, what skill sets they have, that may benefit the greater good of fiber, I guess.
Sorry for dominating the questions, but I do have one more question. How did you handle or did you experience any pushback for the mandatory masking for the first couple of hours? As somebody who masks whenever I'm inside someplace that's not my home or when I'm around other people in close quarters because I have an autoimmune disease. Um, a mask. And I find even in my everyday life, there is pushback, and so I'm curious as to how you manage to navigate that. I know you're out west, and here in my area, we're very anti-mask. And so that, I want to, again, be accessible to people like myself, but I'm curious as to how you managed that and how you navigated that complexity.
Yeah, so I did have pushback. One was very interesting, and I will share this because I kind of feel like if somebody had the audacity to do it, then this should be recorded and put on YouTube. Um, but I personally have a hard time masking. I have asthma, and when I have the mask on, it makes it really difficult for me to breathe. But for 2 hours, like I can get over it. And if I kind of felt like if I were to have a not panic attack, a asthma attack, I could just step out and take my mask off. But others don't have that luxury. So having the mask time just had to be something that we had to do. And I didn't want it to be the short, like half an hour, like 1 hour. You got to get in there, get it done, because most people that mask also don't have the luxury to run around. So it's kind of that's where the 2 hour thing came in. That we felt that would be a decent amount. It wouldn't ruffle too many feathers, because there was still a huge chunk of time that was not masked or masks optional. So I didn't ask about that one. I just did. It's just this is how it's going to be. And I had one person, and this is and I almost quote word for word because it just like stuck in my head. I had an email from someone who said that they were a doctor and how dare I make masks mandatory. It's against human rights, and masks are proven to be harmful and all this stuff. And then it ended by saying, and for the first 2 hours of the day. And I'm like, hold on, hold on. You're a knitter or somebody else who wants the best yarns, and you're just don't want them to be gone in the first hour. Because why else would you say, and for the first 2 hours of it, like when else would we mask? It doesn't make sense to do it at the end of the day when all the people have already gone through. And so that was pretty much the only prior negative thing I got about the masks. And then I had one person come in with their kid, and they refused to put a mask on their kid, and we just kindly said, "You're gonna have to leave then, mask on or get out," essentially. And that was a non-negotiable. Like it was just a non-negotiable because we had 6 hours of non-masking. So it wasn't like if you can't for medical reasons wear a mask, that you wouldn't be able to come. So then you can't use the argument that you're not being inclusive or accessible, because there was still 6 hours for people who didn't want to mask. Um, so yeah, that's essentially it was just presented as that right from the beginning. There was no questions asked about that. It was just how it's going to be. And yeah, the pushback was very little, very little. I expected a lot more. Um, Funny enough, it was actually one of the larger time slots that sold out was our mass time. Yeah. Even people walking up, we had masks on hand. Right. So if you didn't have your own, or if you came in with a fabric mask, we'd ask for you to switch your mask out. And it was one person that showed up. Oh no, there was one more. There was one more. And she just wouldn't leave. We were like, listen, 20 minutes, you can come back. Oh, I'm just looking for my friend. I'm like, great, look for them in 20 minutes or give me their name and I'll put it on the PA system. And I just escorted her out to chat outside, and that was it. But I think it was like we really wanted to try to please as many people as possible. And that was one of those things where I wasn't going to please someone, because there was an equal opportunity for both groups to be able to be there. Right. So there was no bending the rule there. And that was also set straight up with our volunteers right off the bat. Like during mass time, it is mass time. It is just that is what it is. It was nerve-wracking. I'm not gonna lie. I was like, will anybody come? Are there still people at mass? And sure enough, there are. There was a lot of them. There was tons and tons of them. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it was very, very busy with the masks. You're right,
Yeah.
Amanda. It was very surprising. It was surprising for us too.
Any other questions for Ponnie? Okay, well, I'm
Oh
looking.
wait, I have one. I'll jump in.
Yeah,
It's Amanda speaking.
go ahead.
I was also really delighted to see the variety of vendors that you had, and it just seemed like there was some extra intention that went into that as well. Just any reflections or like how did you ensure that?
Yeah. Um, so it started off with we're not going to decline anyone who is fiber or fiber adjacent. We are going to give everyone a chance to be there. Our vendors were uh, some of them, it was their very first show. They've never been able to do a show before. So some of them were sponsored to be there. So we actually either ourselves or in conjunction with the vendor found someone to pay for them to be there. Um, and we wanted to have a variety of ethnicities, of things that people presented. But it just had to be fiber adjacent to some degree, right? So we had a jewelry maker and she was using leather. I'm like, good enough, right? Like it's a craft and then you're using leather. She's like, I want to do more weaving and stuff. I was like, wonderful, that's cool. Let's do this. So we really tried not to turn anybody down. There was a few vendors I reached out to and went, "Are you sure you want to be here? Like, do you know what this is? Like, we're like yarn people. Like, you sell baby clothes. Like, are you sure?" And she was like, "Yeah, I think this would be a great market for us." So great. Like, we've talked. You work with fiber, and fabric is fiber. Believe it or not, it's not just yarn. So, and we all kind of have that cross, right? People who generally start with one art kind of gravitate to doing more. So or at least are interested in doing more. So we kind of had a little bit of everything there. Um, we also wanted to have some hands-on things. So we had the a dye workshop, we had machine knitting and embroidery and punch needle. So that was really, really neat to get to do some hands-on things that you may not normally do. But a lot of vendors found us, which was really, really cool. I mean, I reached out to a lot of people, I have to tell you, a lot. And my personal opinion on some large businesses has really changed. I may personally not shop at some of them anymore because of just the feedback I got why they wouldn't be a vendor at our show.
Mm.
So, and I won't be naming any of those names because they're all wonderful people still, but their business goals don't align with where I'd like to spend my money. Um, yeah, so yeah, the vendors were phenomenal and such a great group. Like, and the diversity, you're right, was like that was like something where we stepped back and went, oh my gosh. Like the first week we're like, are we even gonna fill any of these spaces? Like it's like 50 tables in this room. How is this gonna work? And by the end, we actually had a wait list. So
Wow.
yeah, yeah, it was pretty cool. Aw, thank you.
That's wonderful. Like I wish we have more smaller shows, even like
Mhm.
smaller than yours in
Mhm.
Metro Vancouver area, because there are a lot of talents out there, but going to vend at Knit City, it is expensive, right? The booth starts from, I don't know, $700 or $800, just in case you don't know. That's how much you have to make before even you start making money. That's a lot of expense. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And something I really want to throw out there while I have somewhat of an audience with you is please do something, right? Like Eureka's doing this show. Thank you for doing this. This is awesome. You're bringing people together with a common passion. So all of us can do this. Every single person here can do something, right? Whether you start a knit group, whether you have a small sale in your living room with a vendor that you want to support, like anything and everything that brings us together again. Um, it's much appreciated and really welcomed. And I think that was one of the things that drove me to do an event was like I wanted hugs again. Like since COVID, I kind of feel like it's really hard to get people out and it's really hard to get connection And I want that. I thrive off hugs. And I was saying, I think I mentioned that on our Instagram, and I had got a lot of hugs. I got so many hugs on that day. It was crazy. Yeah, it was completely wild because other people want that too. We're people, like, people are pack animals, right? We really need each other. So my kids are coming in. Hi. So I encourage you, if you're able to do something, please do. This is my daughter. She makes stitch markers. She can't hear you though because I'm on a headset. You want to say hi?
Okay.
Yeah, so please put together a show, put together a group of people. I don't know, meet at a coffee shop, support our local coffee shop, and just bring a group to them. I think all that is so important for us to kind of think outside of our little bubble and how we can help each other.
Okay, thank you. Is there any other question for Ponnie? Okay, let me stop the recording.